Hello, in this video I will explain translation and rotation operations in CoppeliaSim or VREP software. As you can see here, we have a very simple scene in which I have created one cuboid. Here is this one, and another one which is here. It's in a different position. Okay, so let's start by knowing how we can apply these operations. So first we have to select the object we want to move. And here, if we click on this icon, we will perform translation operations. And if we click on this icon here, we will perform rotation operations. So let's start with the basics of doing translation operations. And this is the dialog box we have. And we have the option of doing the mouse translation, which means that we can move this object when clicking on the mouse. Okay? You can see here, and we can do that by selecting these two things here. We move along X and Y, so this is the plane, or we can do that by selecting Z and modify the height of the object. It is important to mention that all these operations are always relative to a reference frame. In this case, by default, we have the world frame, which is the reference frame that you have on the bottom right of the software. And you cannot see here because I'm occluding it, but you can clearly see on the software. Okay? But you can do that also if you apply these operations with respect to a parent frame or even to its own frame. As you can see here, the own frame is clearly shown here. Once we have selected the object, we have here an x-axis, which is the red arrow, and the z-axis, and the y-axis is just pointing there. Okay, so in this case, also we can obviously select or set the coordinates manually. Imagine that we have done some calculations, and we determine that we would like to have this coordinate with this value. So we can modify the x coordinate, or we can modify the z coordinate individually, or we can do it with respect to the world or with respect to the parent frame. Okay, then we can also apply relative, or we can apply translations which are relative to the world frame, the parent or the own frame, and this is the amount that we're going to shift. Okay, so in this case, imagine that we want to shift along the x-axis a given quantity, and we can do that by clicking on each of the operations, or we can just simply undo this by applying the negative operation. Okay, we can, as I said, we can do that with respect to the world frame or even with respect to its own frame. Okay, so now the aim is to explain how to, in this case, copy and paste the position of one object with respect to another object, and also how the hierarchy relation between objects, how does affect to the objects. Okay, but before that, just simply let me show you that in the case of the orientation, because we haven't seen that, we have also the option of modifying manually the orientation here, so we can rotate to a specific coordinate, or we can, in this case is the z-axis selected, or we can manually rotate a given amount. Okay, and yeah, okay, so now let's imagine that we want to move the x coordinate of this object exactly to the same coordinate, x coordinate of this object. So we want them to be aligned on the x-axis, actually aligned on the y-axis. Okay, so first thing we have to do is select the object we want to move, and then press Shift and select the object that we would like to align to. Okay, in this case, cuboid 0. Then we access to the translation dialog box, and in the position here we select, or we click on Apply X to Selection. This will copy the x coordinate of this object into the x coordinate of this object. Okay, and you can see now both objects are aligned. Okay, imagine also that we would like to have the Z coordinate also the same, so it will go just to the floor. Okay, good. And also imagine that we want the other way around, so we would like to have this object here, the same orientation of this object here. So we first select this object, we click Shift, select the other object, we go for the orientation, and we apply the selection, and the object rotates. Okay? Yeah, okay. So this is with respect to the copy and paste feature. And now let's see what happens when two objects have a hierarchy relationship. Okay, so imagine that this cuboid here is child of this other cuboid. So we can do that just, as you can see, just by click and drag there, drag and drop, okay? So now this cuboid here, whenever we apply a translation, rotation, or whatever we want, let's say this thing here, it will also move the object that is below in the chain. As you can see here, we can do that with translations, or we can do that with even with rotations. Okay, thank you very much.